according to the Alaska part of the statistics, in Alaska, the largest scam by far, by almost double, were the imposter scams. So out of all the fraud reports coming out of Alaska, 23% were imposter scams. And then identity theft was 13%. It went down from there. Prizes, sweepstakes, and lottery, 9%. Telephone and mobile services, 8%. And then it went down. Online shopping, banks and lenders, auto-related, debt collection, internet services, and healthcare. So by far, it was one of the biggest things, but it also encompasses a lot, from these type of IRS scams, government scams, to the grandparent scam, which is also an imposter scam. And so there's lots of other areas where that are considered imposter scams. Utility scams, somebody calling and telling you that your utilities are going to be turned off because you haven't paid the bill. The banking texts and the phone calls that you're getting that there's something wrong with your bank account. And how many of us have gotten that Alaska USA text or email saying that there's a problem with our account, whether or not we actually have an account there. And as I mentioned, the grandparent or the family friend scam, that's at the top of the list. And then the tech support scams are also imposter scams. And I think we're going to talk about that next month, is going into the tech support side of it. So with that, for those that listened to it beforehand, if not, we're going to be giving parts of it just following now. So this couple is in Utah. The main person's name, her name is Michelle, same like mine. And she's busy, she's caring for grandkids. Her daughter was recovering from surgery, and she gets a phone call about her Social Security number, supposedly from the Social Security Administration, telling her that multiple of her bank accounts have been set up by a drug cartel using her Social Security. And he tells her that her family's in danger and she needs to act quickly, that she's being watched by this drug cartel, and that for her family's safety, she's not allowed to tell anyone, including her husband, what is happening. And it just happens to be that her husband is a member of the Utah, or was a member of the Utah House of Representatives. So this is the premise of what happened. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and play it and talk about it at various times about what was going on. So.
Okay, here we go.
From people saying they were targeted. So this scam is obviously working, and that's why it's on the rise. Plus, it's even harder to detect when the scammers point you to real government websites, even real people who work there. And most often, it starts with one little phone call.
Enforcement agencies to suspend your Social Security number on an immediate basis, as we have received suspicious trails of information in your name. The moment you receive this message, I need you to get back to me on my department division toll-free number, that is 1-888-952-5554. I repeat, 1-888-952-5554. Verify the last 4 digits of your Social Security number when you call to better assist you with this issue. Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible. Thank you.
So let's get to our story. You know, it's hard to tell a scam is a scam when you think you're dealing with your own government, trying to save you from a scam. This one starts out west, a bucolic little town in northern Utah, hugged by the majestic Wasatch Mountains. Founded by cattle ranchers, the kind of place where neighbors look out for each other, a place that feels safe. Back in December, while Kyle Anderson is spending his days serving as a state legislator, his wife Michelle, in her mid-50s, is busy taking care of her grandkids while her daughter recovers from back surgery. A very busy time, in fact. Christmas is looming. Michelle is pretty frazzled and not getting much sleep.
So it was during this time that she received 3 voicemails from the Social Security Department saying that there was fraud associated with her Social Security number, and that she needed to call. And this wasn't completely out of the ordinary for her, because maybe a month ago or a month prior to that, we had received a call, a legitimate call, from our credit card company that just said, we've got some potentially fraudulent charges on your credit card, and we just, please call us and we want to verify these charges.
Michelle called, and a concerned, official-sounding man told her there were several bank accounts that had been opened using her social security number, that the government believed drug cartels were behind it.
And he said, but there's also more to this. And first he said, I want to put your mind at ease. I want you to know that you can know who you're talking to. So he gave her his name and said, you know, you go to the Social Security Administration website and you look me up, and then you'll know that you're talking to somebody from Social Security. So she did. She felt like that she was doing, you know, her due diligence to do that.
There was.
All right, Michelle, that's our first break in the presentation.
Yeah, so the thing that's important to note here is that they were pointed to a real website, which they went to, and that they used real names of people in the Social Security office and also at the FBI, and they had her look them up, and it all just seemed legitimate because they were using the real website. They used the real people on there. So that's a major thing. They obviously did some research. She wasn't the only one they were scamming, obviously, in this situation, but to her, it seemed very legitimate. Okay. Is there any questions on that so far?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to keep playing. Next segment.
More. This agent told Michelle a car had been found at the Texas-Mexico border, registered in her name and covered in blood. Terrified, Michelle listened to the man describe what was next.
Well, you are implicated in this, and it is certainly implicated with the drug cartels. So part of what we need to resolve here and investigate is I need to get you in touch with the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, because they are actually opening a case on you, and it's part of this big investigation that they're doing of the cartels. So he transferred the call to a man who identified himself as Adam DeLon from the DEA. And he did the same thing. He said, you know, it's completely reasonable for you to question this. So go to the DEA website and look me up. The man had an Indian accent. And so when she looked and found his picture, there he was, and he was of Indian descent. So it was clear in her mind that she was talking to this man from the DEA.
So she had zero reason to question.
Exactly.
This DEA agent told Michelle that the cartels had opened multiple accounts using her information across the country, and that once the feds closed in, which would be soon, those accounts would be seized and frozen. But so would Michelle's legitimate bank accounts. Can you see where this is headed? He told her that to protect her money, they needed to move it all to a safe place, another account, while all this went down.
They just warned her. You just need to understand, we're dealing with the drug cartels. They are watching you because they know whose account they have set this up. They are watching your every move. You have to make sure you act normal. You can't have any unusual activity in your account.
And even more important, the agent told Michelle she cannot, under any circumstances, tell anyone about this, especially not her husband.
If you were to tell your husband, as a matter of fact, you can't tell your husband, if you were to tell him and then he went down and started withdrawing money from those accounts, they would know, and your family is in danger. But also, if you don't cooperate with us, you need to understand that you're a suspect in this. And so if you don't cooperate with us, then we will come and arrest you. And they even sent her a copy of an arrest warrant. Now, she just looked at it on the phone because she was pretty much believing what they said. And it was late, it was dark, she had a little baby in tow. And so she just thought, oh my heck, this is real. They told her exactly then what she needed to do.
God. And that meant...
All right, Michelle, we're at our second break.
Okay. So what was happening here is the scammer was using fear and intimidation. He told her that, car was found with blood in it. It was registered to her. He actually transferred supposedly the call, which is obviously to another scammer, to the DEA. There was a photo of the person on there that looked like it could be the person that she was talking to. They scared her and intimidated her to thinking, okay, they're actually watching you. So don't change what you're doing. Don't tell anybody. don't go to the police, because they're watching you. And of course, they told her not, don't tell your husband about this either, because he may do something, he may go to the police. So this is basically all on her to protect her family, and total fear and intimidation. And there's an immediacy to this. This has to happen right now. We need you to be transferring your accounts into the one. We need you to do the money right now, because this is happening right now. And we want to stop them from arresting you and your family, because this car was registered to you and there was blood found on it. Okay, so any questions on that part of it?
We do have a question. Is it possible to actually contact Social Security to check to see if this is true? Yeah.
Yes, just call their number that you look up, not a number that they give to you.
Okay.
Don't trust anything that they're, this person trusted them, but yes, you could definitely call the Social Security Administration.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, we're ready for the next 3-minute segment? Okay.
Gather everything up, everything in every account.
We had CDs, we had multiple accounts in different institutions, and she was to transfer all those funds, wire transfer to an offshore account in China. And so she was in the process of doing that. She was gathering everything from other banks and putting it into one account. She was canceling CDs and taking penalties, everything associated with it.
We are talking more than $150,000 here.
Our goal was always, when we could, we would save our money. When everything was paid off, I would retire, and we would serve a mission together for our church. So we had been active savers. We had paid off our home, and we had a decent nest egg. So yes, we felt like we were very secure.
They had planned well for their future. But how do you plan for something like this? Michelle felt she was doing the right thing to protect her family.
They were, if you tell your husband, then, the first thing he's going to do is probably go try to protect your money. You cannot tell anybody. You need to understand your family is in jeopardy. And if you tell them and they act on this, the cartels are going to be after you. So she knew that her family was in jeopardy. What they were telling her is it needs to be offshore, because these are all domestic accounts that have been set up. And so all of those will be taken. So we need to take it offshore, but we'll move it right back.
That authoritative yet reassuring voice on the phone stays with her the whole time, leading her through the process, urging that it needed to be done immediately.
She went and wire transferred the first big payment. They told her that she could keep, it was Christmas, and they told her that she could keep less than $1,000, and they made her take a picture of the receipt when she was done, showing that there was less than $1,000 in her account. They also made her write out a statement that said, I will cooperate with the U.S. government in this investigation, send that with a picture of her driver's license to them, which she did. And she just felt like whatever they said, she needed to cooperate with.
Michelle, at this point, is terrified to keep her savings and willing to do whatever it takes to keep her family safe, having no idea what these drug cartels could be capable of if she made the wrong move. So she is now well on her way to emptying every account she and Kyle had. When the so-called agents ask Michelle if that is everything, she tells them, well, Kyle had set aside a few $1,000s to help with medical bills for their baby granddaughter. But these scammers tell her, nope, she needs to wire that too. They even coach her about what to say at the bank.
They were on her phone in her purse and had told her that they would be listening to make sure that she did it right, and that she didn't say anything out of the ordinary, and that she was to tell them that she was buying electronics.
God, this is like, it feels like a kidnapping without the kidnapping.
If you could only understand, when I looked at the chain of texts, and it was, I felt like my wife had just been abused. It was like she'd gone through hell and back. They were constantly prodding her and saying, now again, you make sure you don't tell anybody. Have you done this? Have you, just, is your husband gonna be at home? They were asking her just all of these questions just to keep her on the hook. And it made me sick to my stomach when I looked. It's like they had violated her.
But don't think.
All right, Michelle, we're at our next break.
Yeah. So what did they do? They got her to trust them, trust us, keep us on the phone while you go to the bank because, we're going to help you out. But of course, they're listening in to make sure. And the other part of this that was so interesting was they also got the identity theft in here as well, even though she wasn't going to have any money left because they wanted a picture of her driver's license. And they also wanted a picture of the check or the bank account. To show that she had less than $1,000 in there. So there was multiple different things going on here. And I'm telling you, these people, these scammers, they have it down. I've had here in Anchorage, I had a senior that his daughter actually called me to try and talk to him. He lost tens of thousands of dollars to these imposter scam, various different ones, but basically, trust me, don't trust your family, don't trust the bank. I'm your friend, they're not your friend. And I spoke to this gentleman for about an hour. He agreed with everything I said. And then his daughter, there was another MoneyGram that he went and got it at Carsonville Village, and that he sent some more money to them. They changed his phone number several times, and he called the scammers and gave them his phone number because they were his friends. So they really, plus they are very persistent. They will sometimes call 10, 20 times a day. In this situation, they were keeping her on the phone while she went to these different places. So the biggest thing is she was trusting them and she trusted what they were telling her. And then they're getting other scams in with the identity theft as well. Okay. And then we'll just this last couple minutes on that and then we'll wrap that part up.
Right. Here comes the last segment.
These scammers were finished.
And then they said, "Are you sure that you got everything?"
They were going to take every penny they could. Michelle tells them, well, we had just cashed out some stocks that we were going to invest elsewhere, but that's in a check form now, so that should be fine, right?
And they said, oh no, that was drawn from a bank under your Social Security number. That check will be worthless if you don't put that in there and protect it. By us moving it out, then you'll lose all that money as well.
What had taken a lifetime to save, all gone in a few quick transactions.
And at the same time, she was running grandkids to school and to dance and to soccer, and she was taking care of we have a little 18 months grandson. You just need to understand, my wife is an incredibly smart woman. She's not easily fooled. She is trusting, but everything just aligned just right in such a weird way.
They got everything. However, these guys were not finished.
They called her again, and then they said, oh, is your home paid for? And she said, yes. And they said, oh, we were afraid of that. We're going to have to secure your home. Your home's not safe either. And so that it could get caught up in that seizure. Send us the value of 40% of your home. We estimate, you need to get us another $200,000. And she said, I couldn't do that. I would have to take out a mortgage. You now have all of our savings. And so I would have to take out a mortgage, and I couldn't do that without my husband. And they said, well, then you need to, you don't understand the gravity of this. This is important. And so you need to ask friends. And so we have one friend who is, in a position that he could have that kind of cash. And so she went to him, and she said, I can't even tell you why, but I need to borrow $200,000. And he said, Michelle, are you sure this is legit? And she said, I am. I can't really talk about it, Alan, but yeah, I am. And so he said, well, I only have $65,000 liquid. This was on a Friday. And he said, but I can get you the rest of it on Monday. And so she said, okay. And he started the wheels turning to get it. And that's when the inspiration came. Now this has gone too far. This doesn't seem like it's legitimate anymore. So then she went onto the internet and looked for DEA, Social Security, and boom, It was immediate.
Oh,
She
God.
found what she needed. So she knew.
All right, Michelle, that's the end of that segment.
Okay, so the rest of it just kind of goes on. But the important thing is that she had distractions. She was taking care of grandkids. She was running kids to school. Her husband says, you know, she was smart, but she was trusting. And, you know, it was at this point, there's a whole psychology to this, that it was throwing good money after bad, because she felt that she was already into this for that couple $100,000, and psychologically she needed to continue. And that's why she went to the friend about the mortgage, because she just felt like it had to be true, because she'd already spent all this other money, or they already had access to those couple $100,000 that she'd already cashed in CDs and everything. And the whole psychology part of it is, okay, I need to get more money, but you know, it was throwing good money out there again, but she had to believe it was true, because she already had so much into it. And then for those that you listen to it, that you know that they got the Utah Attorney General involved in this whole thing, that they started working on legislation that would require wire transfers overseas for banks to have extra scrutiny on those things, and for these bankers to ask questions and to tell people about scams, which I think in some ways they're good up here. And even sending these MoneyGrams and Western Union, that sometimes, you know, when they go into the stores, they're being told these things. So that's kind of how it would happen. And we need to see a lot more of this type of legislation. The psychology behind this, and especially targeting the seniors, is it's just total manipulation. They're asking personal questions to find emotional triggers. This woman was afraid for the security of her family. They want them to make impulsive decisions, and do it now. There's an immediacy to this. We have to do this right now. The drug cartels are watching you. We have to get this money transferred right away. You're going to be arrested. The car with your name on it was found with blood. We need to do this right now. But the biggest thing is that they tell them not to talk to any of their family members. They don't want them to tell the truth at the bank. You know, they had her tell the bankers that they were going to be buying electronics or something, but they don't want you to talk to anybody, because for obvious reasons. So they use threats, they use intimidation, they do use coercion. There was threats of the lawsuits and arrest for this money. So they kind of put everything into this, but it was a huge payoff, because if you listen to the tape, they know there was nothing the FBI could do. The money was gone. It was transferred to the bank in China offshore, and it was gone. One of the interesting things they said about this was that that these thousands of these accounts are set up and closed in China, and it's become a clearinghouse, and there's nothing that these people can do to get the money back. So it was a sad situation. She had to go to work. Her husband had to leave the legislature and go back to work full time. And but you know, their attitude was nobody died, and we'll just have to make the money back up again. So anyway, we can talk more about that. There were a couple questions here.
Will Social Security or the IRS ever call, or do they use written communication?
No, if you get notified by the Social Security, by the IRS, by government agencies, by court system, it's always going to be by U.S. Postal Service by mail. It's very rare. If you're getting a phone call, it's something that's been ongoing with a problem with your taxes that you already know about. You've been notified by U.S. Postal Service, but as far as I know, there are no phone calls from any of those entities. So if you get them and they're saying that, they're not going to call you for any reason. Last year we had, or 2 years ago, when the new Medicare numbers were coming out, where people were getting numbers instead of the Social Security numbers, scammers were involved with that, calling people, telling them they either had to pay a fee to get their new card, or trying to get information saying, we need you to verify this because there's a problem with it. Again, they're never going to call you. So the best thing to do is, what I always say, is hang up the phone on that situation.
And then we had
Any of
another
those
comment.
calls that you get.
I'm sorry, Michelle. We had another comment. It says, I got a Social Security scam text on my phone. this last January saying had an enforcement action file on my Social Security account for fraudulent activities. So they are targeting Alaskans. And then the rest of the comments, you can track your own Social Security account through My Social Security at ssa.gov/my account. You have to set it up, but then you can check on your account status any time. And then the follow-up to that is there a way to report scam text messages?
Yes, the FTC takes that information. I think you can put it on the scam tracker that you have there at AARP. BBB has a scam tracker. And yes, definitely report that because they do keep that information, and they do it by state, so you can look up to see what's happening in your own areas, and you can drill down to even zip codes on some of these sites. So yes, I always encourage you, hopefully you're not going to lose any money on it, but I encourage you to report it so we all have an idea of what's happening in Alaska, and we can see the type of calls that are coming.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So would you like to go to
and it looks like Teresa did actually put the link in there if you guys wanted to save that link.
Great, thanks, Teresa. Michelle, would you like to go to the slides now?
Well, we can open it up. I wanted to talk one thing and then we'll open it up. Just a couple of things. So tips for avoiding these sorts of imposter scams. You never want to trust caller ID. I don't care what it says on there. Don't trust it, especially if they want information from you. You're not initiating the phone call. As I said before, and I can't emphasize it enough, you get that kind of call, just hang up the phone. Don't even get into a dialogue with these people because they're good and they can keep you talking. And if they don't get you on this scam, if they know you're going to talk to them, they're going to call again on another type of scam. Never, never, never give out personal information, social security number, any information to anybody that calls you where you didn't initiate the call. And again, just hang up that phone. Yes, you can check with the real Social Security Administration. We talked about that earlier. You can call them directly and to see if they're really trying to find you and they're looking for you. But I can almost guarantee you they're going to send a letter by the Postal Service. You do want to talk about it. If you get anything and you actually listen to the call, you're concerned about it, talk to family members, talk to a trusted banker, anybody else, just talk to them, get a reality check on it. But I can tell you mostly it's going to be a scam. Social security numbers are never suspended. That's one of the things that the recordings that people have received. You're never going to get your social security number suspended. The IRS, if you talk to them, will never ask for personal information and they won't call you because it'll be by mail. Again, you want to be suspicious of any call from a government agency asking for any kind of information. And again, verify with the real agency of the number that you look up to make sure that they're not really looking for you. And never, never, never use anything by a wire transfer or to go buy a gift card. You know, you're not going to pay your court fees by going out and getting an iTunes card and giving them the number on the back. So if you can leave this with anything, and again, we're going to open this to questions, just know that, yeah, that they're not going to ask you to do it that way, and these aren't going to be legitimate. Okay.
Okay, so everyone is now or should be off mute. I hope I've got everyone unmuted here. And looks like most people are unmuted. So if you have a question for our expert, Michelle, today, please go ahead with your question.
All right, that's good to know. So let me just, if I could just get the most recent visit, that would be fine.
Sounds like we got somebody on the phone here. So I may see if I can mute him. Anybody else have any questions for Michelle?
Or any comments on the podcast that you'd like to discuss? It's supposed to be kind of like a book club. Is there anything that really got you or got your emotions going on this?
I think everyone's in shock at the dollar amount that was lost in that story.
This is Janae from the Medicare Information Office, and I think it's just a constant reminder to show us that even the most intelligent people can get caught up in these scams. I mean, we're talking about a family who, you know, was very financially well-to-do, and so fraud and scams don't discriminate. They get the people who are wealthy, they get the people who have very limited incomes. And so I like how you comment that we need to talk about it, because I think knowledge is power, and we need to encourage people to report scams and frauds when they're embarrassed about it, because the only way that we're going to protect ourselves in the future is to talk about it and make sure that they get reported so people are aware of what's going on.
And that's absolutely correct, Janae. Talk to parents, grandparents, any elderly people, especially that you know, get the word out, send them the link to the podcast to listen to, sometimes hearing it from someone else, but it's an embarrassment. I think one of the biggest ones I ever had was on a grandparent scam here in Alaska. The couple lost $80,000. They thought it was a phone call from their grandson. Again, it was not obviously their grandson, but they thought it was, but he was in Mexico. He was in jail. He, you know, needed to get out. They were, you know, then another guy came on that was supposedly from the American Embassy. It just went on, and the grandparents went down to the bank and wired, you know, $80,000 to Mexico. Yeah. And and it was just, and it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to hear this. And of course, the grandson was here in Anchorage, and wasn't in Mexico. And if they had just called the family members to see what was going on, it might have turned out differently.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Michelle, for your information. You always put on a great show.
Any other comments on this? Beverly?
I was just wondering if anybody's been a victim of a scam on Craigslist. I've had, I have a Airbnb, and I had my photos. I think they got them off of VRBO, same verbiage and everything, and then he advertises it for long term. And I've had people, two people who've actually wired money. And then one lady who came, and she thought I was in connection with the scammer, and she wouldn't believe me that this had happened before. And we got the police. She was in my front yard for 4 hours, and I had to have the police come. And they just said, you know, I went to the police, I went to the FBI, and they just said it's so low on the list, they don't have time to deal with it. And I don't know, maybe the Better Business Bureau is a place to report that, but they changed the name. I don't know how to find them.
The Better Business Bureau? Yeah, it's just bbb.org. As far as I know.
I don't know how to track this or see how to get the connection. We've taken screenshots of the contacts back between when they're talking to the person.
Did you report it to Craigslist? Because they do have a fraud department there.
They do, but they have that disclaimer that says never wire any money without seeing it. But what's made me a little concerned is, what if somebody books through Airbnb and then shows it to somebody and collects money? I know
we see. I used to see that quite frequently. Not back then as much in Alaska, but we had a situation that was reported to us at that point too, where a couple was had to play a long-term thing for 3 months up here because they had grandkids and family, and they were coming up for the summer. And again, they did it where the photos were hijacked from the real website. And in this case, it wasn't for Airbnb. It was a situation where at one time the house had been listed, and they used those and they put it up as a long-term rental. And the people had sent the money and everything. They got to Alaska. Well, a real person was living in that house. It was down in Bootleggers Cove. So it was a horrible situation. I saw it also, back when my down in Colorado, my daughter was looking for housing for the next school year when she was in college down there. And she sent me this thing. She goes, "Mom, I needed money in my account right away." there's this great house. It's 3-bedroom. It's got a swimming pool. It's furnished, but he said I could bring in my own bed and everything. But he's in England and he can't. So he's got the keys and stuff, but I have to send money, send the keys, and I can go drive by the house. And I'm saying, this doesn't sound right. You're not getting this house for, between her and her roommate, $1,200 a month or something. There's just no way. And I told her to go drive by, and she took a picture herself. And of course the house was listed. They hijacked all the information, and he was trying to get the money, and he was going to send the keys. And, it was going to be, we just want a good person living there. We know this is cheap, but we want some good people in there. But if she had the money in her account, she would have sent it. So I'm sorry that happened to you, Beverly. It's a hard situation, and those people did get scammed, and it's frustrating.
Well, it's just continuing, and the only thing I did was to take the same pictures and write scam on them, and I posted that on Craigslist, and I never advertised the place on Craigslist. So, but it just continues to happen. I mean, just last week I had a guy that came to the door, and he said, I thought it sounded a little suspicious. But yeah, that one thing, never take pictures with your address on it. That was one mistake. I forgot to wipe that off when I created.
And that's good information. Thank you for that. That's really good information. Yeah, sorry that's happening to you. And I feel bad for the people that were scammed on that. Yeah, thank you. So any other comments? And
Michelle, I just want to point out, I hope everybody is able to get to the chat. If people aren't able to get to the chat, say something, because we put in the FTC website, we put in the AARP website, the Better Business Bureau website, and then there's also the Department of Law website. So those are all places where people can report scams.
And we do have slides. Daryl, maybe we can share that now.
Sure.
And people can still talk. We have some slides to show you with some information on it for resources. Anyone else have comments? There you go. There's a Fraud Watch Network information. And then we've got 2 more slides with more information. Maybe if you want to take a picture of it or a screenshot or something.
So Michelle, I know this isn't Social Security, but my father-in-law got a call from the police department saying that his son had been arrested. And 15, 20 years ago, his son had been arrested several times. And so it hit that trigger point, that emotional trigger point. They said that it was a Friday, and they said, for him to not have to go to jail, you need to pay $300. And he was not sure. And they said, well, again, they verified using the sheriff's name. We are sheriff, and this was in Colorado, but we are the sheriff XYZ, look it up. Sure enough, that was his sheriff. So they got him to go to Walgreens, buy some gift cards, which he thought was strange, but they said, oh no, it was a Saturday, because they said, well, we can just only take gift cards today, but if you get us the money today, he won't be arrested. So he went down there and they said, by the way, we're not going to be in uniform because we're doing undercover right now. We'll just zip over, pick up the cards and make sure he gets out today. And you can't call him because he doesn't have, we took his cell phone, so he won't be able to answer, so you can't check with him. They did a really good job. And my father-in-law is an engineer, so he's a well-educated man. But they got him on the emotional thing and the quick thing. You got to do this today, right now. Come down here. And so he gave him $300 in gift cards.
What's interesting about that is that they had a live person. So he actually met with the person at the store.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't hear about that very often, where there's actually a live person here, in the United States that's actually doing that. So these are normally mules they're called money mules that pick up those monies and pick up those gift cards. and then they do the transactions that it obviously goes on to the criminal network.
Right. But yeah, so it's just really,
Frustrating.
he wouldn't talk about it with anybody because he was super embarrassed. And
Yeah,
so,
well, thank goodness it was only $300.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and they called him back after they got the $300, you know. A couple days later, they called him back and said, well, you know, we need some court fees now. But by then, my brother-in-law had called him and said, what are you doing? I'm not in jail. I haven't been arrested for decades. Why would you believe this? I have a job. You know, I'm an upstanding citizen. I was a teenager when I got arrested, you know. So, but, you know, and he would have told you up front that he would have never fallen for it. But the gift cards should have been the red flag, you know. The gift cards, you have to do it today. Why would it be on a Saturday? That didn't really, you know, that doesn't typically make sense.
And normally an officer wouldn't call. They allow the person being arrested to make the phone call, you know, if that was really happening. So, Daryl, is there 2 other slides there?
I just wanted to pause on this slide as well to give people a chance to capture any of the information they may need.
Yep, and there's some really good resources here in Alaska to help people. And I know, Janae, your office too has a fraud component to it as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments? Any other?
If Daryl could go back to that slide, I did want to talk real quick about the Office of Elder Fraud and Assistance. So if you know somebody who's being taken advantage of, either by a scammer or by family members. So when I worked for the long-term care ombudsman, we had one lady who was involved in a romance scam, and her boyfriend online was building a house, and she had sent him like $80,000. And her neighbor reported it to Office of Elder Fraud and Assistance, and they were able to freeze her bank accounts. Because she literally was running out of money to be able to live. And so that is really nice for Alaska. Most states do not have an agency like that, but Alaska does. They can also stop the situation where grandson or granddaughter or child moves in with an elder and is slowly draining their bank account. $100 here, $200 there, $300 here. And pretty soon they aren't able to pay their mortgage, those kind of things. So the Office of Elder Fraud and Assistance can actually freeze the assets, then get a quick conservatorship, and start paying the bills so you don't lose your assets. So that's a good one to know even if you just run across somebody. Like I learned about this, and then we found out one of my mom's friends, their children were taking all her money. And so we were able to get her a conservator. But she had lost everything except her house.
So sad. It's just heartbreaking. Yeah. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it ever good to engage with somebody with a scammer? Because I do a lot of things. One of the things I do is photography as a photographer, and I've gotten a lot of wedding scam stuff and other things. It happens all the time. I'm pretty savvy to it, but is it ever good to try to engage with them, to track them down or anything, or is it just not worth the effort?
It's not worth the effort. Hang up the phone. So I'd say the vast majority are not in this country and couldn't be tracked down. One of the information, let me grab it here. They have a lot of these scams occur out of call centers in India. And I have some good information here. I can remember at one point they had closed down a call center in Mumbai. There were 700 people working there doing these scams. And this was a couple years ago when the IRS scam was the big deal. And they closed down that call center, and I believe AARP and BBB scam tracker stuff and FTC reports went down to almost nothing after that was closed down. And of course, they pop up in other places again, but they're not going to track it down. And from what they're saying is that these other countries are not really they're not prosecuting these people. So no matter how much they can do, unless part of the situation is in the United States, and they do go after those people if they can get that information. And there have been people arrested in the United States that are doing these scams. But for the mass majority of them, they're out of country and they're really hard to track down. So yeah, I would not, Don, I would not spend your time doing it. Just hang up the phone. Hopefully you haven't lost any money on it and move on, because the calls aren't going to stop.
It's emails and texts.
Right. Yeah. And it costs them nothing to really do that. So they're not, yeah, so they're throwing them out there millions at a time to do those sorts of things, and it's cheap to do it, so they do it. Yeah. But thank you.
So I just want to say one more thing, Michelle. I wanted to encourage people, because I think the reason we're using the podcast is because it's a good, easy way to learn something, and it's interesting the way they tell the stories. So feel free to share the stories. I've shared them with family members, because, you know, the more we know, the more likely we are to be able to spot a scam. So, and they're free, they're accessible to everyone, and they're a good way to share information.
And it's so important to get this education out, because I talk to so many people that don't hear about these scams, and they don't know. They just don't know, and they fall for it because they don't know.
And to that point, Michelle, we will be back on September 24th at 3:30 with the next version of the AARP Fraud Watchdog Howl. And I believe you mentioned earlier, I think it's tech scams, if I have that correct.
Mm-hmm.
So our plan is to offer this presentation at least once a month. And I'm sure there's enough scams out there for us to offer this for quite some time into the future at the pace of once a month.
And invite your friends and family members to tune in next time and listen in. It's worth an hour of your time.
And it'll be on again on September 24th at 3:30. Any other questions?
Thanks, right. Michelle.
Well, Michelle, a big thank you from AARP and from all the participants today. Thanks for leading this inaugural trip through this subject. And again, we'll be back on September 24th with tech scams. You can head over to AARP's website, aarp.org/AK. There's a list of activities, and you can click on that if you'd like to register for that event. And with that, everyone stay healthy and stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. All right, thanks so much. Take care.